Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. We're going to give it just another minute, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Yeah, as we're waiting, if folks want to drop into the chat where you are joining us from. All right, Minnesota, Irvine, California, Indiana, Raleigh, Oregon, New Mexico, Richmond, Wisconsin, Mississippi, Orlando. Oh, SMRP is coming up next week in Orlando. Oh, hey, Antoine. North Carolina, San Diego, upstate New York, Missouri, San Diego. Ooh, Slovenia. Colorado. I'm in Denver. Illinois, Washington State. Ooh, Peru. Iowa. All right, well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining our UpKeep Fall 23 product release webinar. Okay, so just a couple of things before we get started. There are two separate features here. There's a questions at the very bottom left, and then there's also a chat. So what everybody has been typing into is the chat. For specific product questions, though, if you wouldn't mind typing them into the question section, it's just a little bit easier to keep track and make sure that we take care of answering everybody's questions. All right, so today I'm going to kick us off and go through an overview of the new features that we're releasing. My name is Natasha Reed. I'm the interim head of product here at UpKeep. Just want to say a big thank you to Kobe from our marketing team for helping us behind the scenes and make sure this is all really well facilitated. And then we're also joined by the rest of the product team today. So we'll be hearing from Mark McKelvey, Nate Parsons, Alina Lee, Daniel Binkowski, and then Spencer Nelson will be helping moderate Q&A for us as well. Okay, so just a couple of things that we wanted to mention to everybody. We do have a new offering that we call the UpKeep Pledge, and this is basically our way of just saying that we're putting our customers first. So there's a variety of aspects to this program, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody on the call today knows that all of our existing customers, you receive now a $500 annual professional services credit. So you can use that for training, you can use it for data importing, you can use it for pretty much whatever you would like to around professional services. So just want to make sure that everybody knows about that. We are also going to be out in Orlando next week at the SMRP conference. So we'll be there Tuesday and Wednesday. We're also hosting a customer appreciation dinner Tuesday evening. So if you're going to be there, please reach out, let us know, or type into the chat, and we'll make sure to get you signed up and RSVP'd for dinner. And then lastly, I just also want to make sure everybody knows that we still have our 24/7 live phone and chat support, which is something that we introduced earlier this year. Okay, so for today, a couple of things we'll be covering. The first is automated downtime tracking via DataHub, and then also a variety of administrative and user experience enhancements. So the first feature we'll cover is the automated downtime tracking. Also just want to mention to everybody that we do now have the ability to do remote installation for DataHub. So that's just a really big progressive step for the team. Prior to this, we were really focused on North America customers only. So can kind of open that up a little more internationally now. Then we're going to cover some checklist enhancements. So we're now supporting grouped tasks for both mobile and web. Then we'll do some administrative settings. We have a new settings update, or a new settings page, a V1, if you will. And we've also added a little bit of additional work order, due date automation there. Then we'll cover a couple other changes to the user experience around the inventory displays and also some filters. And then finally, we'll go through some enhancements around QR label code printing. Also, just a friendly reminder to everybody, different ways you can communicate directly with us, the product team. One is we've been offering a beta feedback period for about 2 weeks before the general availability release for most of these features. So that'll come up in-app directly. So when you log into the web or mobile app, there will be a little banner at the top of the page that you can click and ask to be added to if you want to try or test out anything in advance and provide feedback. We also have just an ongoing feedback forum for both mobile and web. So you have the ability to directly provide feedback to us there. And then we run surveys on kind of a project or a specific focus basis as well. Okay, so our first feature for today, automated downtime tracking via DataHub. So this really just helps you automatically send data from your sensors, your PLCs, et cetera, into UpKeep Core to help automate the tracking of asset downtime. It supports really a variety of different signals or data points. So definitely things that help correlate to just on-off signals, but things like current draw and electricity, and really anything that you're tracking from a data perspective can be used to implement this. And then finally, it's just going to automatically capture all of the different events and put them into the asset downtime log in UpKeep. So this is available for all DataHub subscribers. Pretty straightforward use case, just automatically identifying and tracking asset downtime. It supports currently supports the more common PLCs like Allen Bradley and Siemens, and then also connected sensors. So you can see down here from a downtime log perspective, these are data points that are just being automatically tracked at this point via the DataHub downtime capabilities. And then from a benefit perspective, definitely just an increase in accuracy because it's automated. Also eliminates kind of like the manual capturing of data or like walking around or uploading spreadsheets or that kind of stuff. Should really help you identify more proactively problematic assets that you want to keep maybe a closer eye on or just be a little more proactive and preventive. And this also really easily scales to both new assets as well as new locations because it's relatively automated. Okay, second feature to cover for today, the grouped tasks around checklists. So we now have the ability to group tasks by checklists. You can support multiple checklists for this effort, basically an unlimited amount of checklists. We're also going to show you progress completion. So you can see up over here, there's 42 total tasks and 17 of those have been completed. And this is available on both web and mobile. So this is available for everybody, all editions. From an application or a use case perspective, really helpful if you have maybe like different kind of groups or categories. So maybe you have one checklist for like the preliminary work, but then you've got another checklist for what you actually want to do or take care of, but it would be better to kind of have those together aggregated in the same work order. And it's also just really helpful if you have many checklists or kind of many tasks. From a benefit perspective, just really an overall improved user experience, helps organize information more effectively, and again, shows you like the real-time progress of how you're actually progressing. All right, our new administrative settings page. So you can see down here, this is a little sneak peek of what that setting page now looks like. It's organized a little bit more based on modules. In general, the functionality is actually the same. So I think that's just really important to point out. This is more of a facelift and a user experience change than any of the functionality. The exception to that is we did add some automation around being able to set a work order due date automatically for reactive work orders. So the settings page is available in all editions for all users. The due date automation is specific to our automated workflows, and that is available in the Business Plus edition. From a benefits perspective, So again, just kind of an overall improved administrative user experience, just kind of reorganizing things in a more intuitive way. On the back end, we did make quite a bit of improvements to help just lay the foundation for faster innovation in the future. And then for the automated due date, just the ability to have fewer clicks and have higher data integrity about making sure that for specific conditions, you can set that due date automatically. All right, a couple of changes around our inventory displays and filters. So you can see over here around location and area, just a cleaner display. Previously, it was a little bit more challenging to view these data points. So just wanted to expose that and make it more helpful and obvious as to where you were actually looking for the value you were looking at. This is on both the web and mobile experiences. And then we made a couple of additions to our filtering capabilities as well. So for whom this is available, the display changes shown here are available for all users. Same with the parts filter that was added, but then POs are specific to Business Plus. So for purchase orders, that filter is only available in Business Plus. The use case or application for this is really like just having multiple locations for parts management, just easier to kind of see where you're actually working or looking for. Key benefits, just fewer clicks, and from the filtering perspective, much easier to kind of filter down to the relevant information and find what you're looking for. All right, and then finally, we've got our QR code label printing enhancements. So we now have the ability to generate a QR label code in the standard 1 inch by 2 5/8 inch format. We've added some additional data points to that as well. So we have the part name, but then also the code, location, area, and then certainly the barcode itself. And maybe most importantly, you now have the ability to select exactly which ones you want to print. So it's no longer an all or nothing. You can be very specific and intentional about, hey, I just need these 5, or maybe I need these 100. So just a much improved user experience there. This is available for everybody. Use case, very straightforward, needing to print your QR code labels. And around a benefits perspective, again, just being able to print like your choice, not having to print all of your labels and then having to go figure out which one is which and et cetera, and providing those extra details for reference as well. All right, and then before we move on to demo, just a couple of things that will be coming soon. We'll be looking to add additional DataHub integration with more sensor types. We are also working on custom work order statuses. Those should have a beta available, I think, relatively soon here. Continuing to work on asset schedules. So in the current state of the world, we basically run on a 24-hour schedule. So this will allow you the ability to do things like set 3 8-hour shifts or something to that effect, but customize based on your business's needs. Lots of updates for checklists coming. So the first is conditional logic. We'll be adding basically, if and logic. So if something is satisfied in the checklist, maybe you want to branch into 2 different answers based on that, but just a variety of different ways to kind of have a more useful experience with checklists. And then kind of similarly with advanced instructions, we'll add some formatting capabilities. We'll add a signature field. Just overall have a lot of like really nice, robust capabilities coming for checklists. A little bit of a continuation around being able to automatically set the due date for work orders. We'll also add the ability or an automated workflow to set the start date. And then also want to mention, we've been doing a lot of work around work orders on the back end to just kind of help improve the overall user experience and performance. This will have an extended beta period. Also really want to mention, this will not have functional. This is another one that's really about performance and user experience. But given how important work orders are, we will do an extended beta to just make sure that we're getting a lot of feedback before we release that for GA. And then everything that we've covered today will be live in production next Wednesday, October 18th. All right, and Mark McKelvey is going to go ahead and walk us through the DataHub data flow.
All right, hey everybody, Mark McKelvey here, and I am a product manager leading our efforts around DataHub. Today I'm excited to show you automated downtime tracking. So automated downtime tracking is for the maintenance managers out there, folks that need to track downtime across their sites in a seamless and scalable manner. So for the demo today, I'm going to be walking through installation and setup. We are going to create a downtime automation. We're going to capture a few downtime events in the asset downtime log. And then finally, we're going to view some downtime data within UpKeep Analytics. So let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, so the first question is, how do we install and set up downtime tracking within DataHub? Well, the way it works is the UpKeep team will send you an industrial hardware device, something that looks like this. And you'll connect it to your PLC, and then we'll configure that device to start pulling data into DataHub. So you'll be able to see that data in DataHub. And as far as like what type of data we're able to track, we can track a variety of metrics, things like on, off, open, closed, temperature, current, runtime, basically anything that comes in through your PLC is available in UpKeep DataHub. So now that I have some readings and data coming in, let's go ahead and set up our downtime automation. For the downtime automation, you effectively need two basic things. You need the asset that you want to track downtime for, and then you need a metric that tracks if the asset is up or down. On the asset side, you'll have access to all of your assets from your UpKeep account. Basically, if it shows up here, it will also show up here. So let's go ahead and select an asset. You can also set the downtime status. You have the option of the default status of not operational. And then you can also set a custom status as well if you have one available. Let's go ahead and set the non-operational status. And now let's go ahead and take a look at the metrics. So any metric that's being pulled in from your PLC is available to detect downtime. And typically, you're going to be using some sort of on-off indicator in order to detect downtime, in which case you just need to select the down state for that particular metric, and then you'll be good to go. You can also select more of a threshold metric, so something like current, in which case you just need to specify the threshold below which the machine is considered down. So say like 10 amps or something along those lines. So we're going to go ahead and stick with the on-off indicator and off as our down state. And the final thing I just wanted to touch on is the downtime filter. If you want, you can exclude events that are below or before a particular duration. So in this case, I don't want to send anything that's shorter than 5 minutes to the UpKeep downtime log. And that helps you filter out kind of like noisy events and things of that nature. For our case, we're going to go ahead and include all events, and we should be good to go. So the last thing I just need to do before I save it is just give my automation a name. I'm going to go ahead and click save. And now let's go ahead and detect some downtime events. You can see that my particular asset right here is up right now. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to trigger a down event. Okay, so I went ahead and triggered that. And you can see that my asset is now down. I'm going to go ahead and trigger another down reading. And you can see that my asset is still down. One more, and my asset is still down. Let's go ahead and now bring that asset back up. I'm going to go ahead and send a up reading now. And now my asset is back up. Okay, So what we want to do is we want to capture that full downtime event in this downtime log right here. So you can see that I don't have anything since about an hour ago. So what I want to do is I want to have DataHub kick off a event processing to get that data synced into my UpKeep downtime log. Okay, I just kicked that off. So now I'm going to go ahead and refresh and take a look at that downtime log. And there we go. I have my downtime event recorded, 24 seconds, very short, but that happened right now at 11:22 a.m. Central Time, which is my time zone. So now you have that downtime record recorded automatically, basically from your machine all the way to the log through DataHub without having to manually enter any sort of readings or anything along those lines. Now that the data is here, you can export it if you want to a CSV file or a spreadsheet. And then you can also take a quick peek at that data in UpKeep Analytics. So the best place to find your downtime information is on the reliability dashboard. Here's where all of your downtime events will be recorded. And what you can do is you can filter by a particular asset. Here, I'm going to go grab that downtime asset that I was just using, and it'll give me a bird's eye view of the downtime events, availability, and the total downtime that has occurred over the given time interval. So that's just a quick peek as to what's available with automated downtime tracking. Again, a seamless and scalable way to capture data from your machines, again, courtesy of DataHub. And with that, I will pass it over to the next presenter.
And Mark, quick question for you. Do you need a separate box for each PLC?
No, you do not. So as long as the the PLCs are on the same network, then we can use just one device, one box to connect to all of those PLCs.
All right, I believe I'm next. Let me share my screen. All right, so I'm going to be showing off the new task grouping by checklists. We'll go ahead and just jump into this. My name is Daniel Binkowski, by the way. I'm a product manager here. I handle all of our permissioning and recently been doing a lot of work around import-export and checklists as well. So let me go ahead and go to my application. So I already have this work order pulled up, just calling a task grouping example. Let's go in here and look at the tasks. I went ahead and added a bunch of checklists. You'll see now that there's kind of these two larger sections where individual tasks are kind of separated out at the top now, and then checklists are headered here. And the kind of big feature here in this edit view as an admin is I can see what checklist these tasks are actually from. So in this case, all of these tasks are part of the daily building inspection checklists. I have a bunch here, general die cutting, etc. And you can actually collapse these now too. So if you click on one of these, it just collapses it. So if you are using a lot of checklists or you want to really break your tasks up into checklists, you have these kind of headers. It makes it a lot easier as an admin to just see, what checklist do I have in here? Am I missing anything? Etc. And then you can also rearrange these. So you can actually just drag these to change the order. So if I'm like, oh, I actually want to do my building inspection after all these other activities, I can just drag that down there. Yeah, and obviously when I add more checklists, they'll be added to the bottom of this list, but then I can move them around and rearrange them. So this is kind of the main feature set on web, really focused on editing and creating work orders. Now let me show you mobile, which is kind of our primary focus for technicians. So I'm on an Android here. We can see the same work order that we were just looking at. I see some completion data here. So there's 27 tasks across 5 checklists, and I'm 15% complete. And when I open this up, you can see the names here, just like on web. So all of these tasks are related to this daily building inspection. And as I complete these, applicable. So we can start marking these as complete, and it'll actually update. So like that was the last one I needed to complete for this checklist. So it actually updates. It gives me a check mark here. I can see 6 out of 6 checklist completed, and this kind of big, green check mark that I'm like, hey, like you're done with all the work related to this checklist, and I can go to the next one. One of the other cool things as well is when I first open this, if I have some checklists completed already, it'll actually scroll down to the first uncompleted task that's available. So just kind of trying to help save time. There's a lot of tasks and a lot of checklists, in the work order. So as a technician, if I have to stop and come back to my work, it's easier to kind of pick up where I left off and understand what I've done and what I still need to do. Yes, that's pretty much everything for this feature. There'll be some more enhancements coming around. Some big ones are on checklists later this year and early next year, so stay tuned for that.
All right, thanks, Daniel. Alina?
All right. Hi there, everyone. I'm Alina, an Associate Product Manager here at UpKeep, and today I will be walking you through the updates that we've made on the newly revamped settings page. Like Natasha said, this update is primarily a facelift and is intended to help create a more intuitive and streamlined experience for all UpKeep admins. So just to note, but functionality is generally the same compared to the legacy settings page. The main changes that you will see stem from the organizational restructure. And throughout the walkthrough, you'll see that parts of the legacy settings have now moved to their own designated section. So let's take a look now at the new settings page. All right, so there are now 3 overarching sections in the left side nav bar here. You'll see organization, modules, and advanced. In the organization section, you'll find your general settings, automation, and user roles. And under general settings, this is where you'll find your common user settings for language and region. In automation, this is where you'll now find your automated workflows. And I want to highlight that we've added an additional enhancement here where users will now have the ability to set a due date automatically for a work order. And that option lives under the then section, which I'll pull up in just a second. So once you scroll all the way down, this is where you can now modify your due date. All right. And with user roles, this includes the exact same functionality as roles in the legacy settings. And in the new module section, this now includes specific related settings for the following object types here. So assets, parts and inventory, requests, work orders, and purchase orders. And in assets, you'll now find the fields tab for creating custom asset fields. They're all relocated here and functionality has remained the same. With parts and inventory, this is where you can now enable parts with multiple inventory lines. And with requests, you'll now find the request form template for checklists, and that can all be modified here. And with work orders, you'll notice some changes. So first, in the general settings section, you'll find settings for just your overall modifications that need to be made for labor costs, notifying requesters, auto-assigning work orders, asking for feedback. And then in the configuration section, this is where users can now have the option to modify the creating and completing a work order page. And with purchase orders, this is where you'll now find the ability to modify your purchase order start count. And lastly, in the advanced section, you'll be able to modify all things settings related to APIs, authentication, integrations, as well as webhooks. And that's pretty much it for the settings page updates.
Great, thank you, Elena. Nate, you want to take us home?
Absolutely. Let me just make sure I got my whole screen shared. Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining again. My name is Nate Parsons. I'm one of the product managers here. And the first portion that I'm going to show you is all of our inventory and purchase orders. So a few of those items that we made updates to on the web app have been the location and area display values. We didn't change anything with the actual values there, but we do now display those labels in different areas. And then that same application applies through to the mobile experience as well. And then I'll cover the filtering of the parts, the added parts filters, and the added purchase orders filters at the list view level. So for the first portion, where you'll really be able to leverage this location and area is at the work order level. And we did this, so when you're searching for parts, please keep in mind, I'm an administrator, I have access to everything in my system, but I will use this one example. So when I'm looking for this particular part, if I were only seeing the name value here, it would make it much more difficult to actually identify which one I'm going in there to actually select and associate to my work order. So we allow the location value and the area value to display at this point now. So if you're actually adding the part to the work order, or if you need to go check on that stock, it can now be done simply from searching for that part here. Alternatively, if I add this part to the work order, it will also display the location or lack thereof and the area value here. So that's the first portion of where we show it. This same application applies on the work order. So when you are, on the mobile app. So when you're scanning, you can see these location area values. Really going to help technicians get in there and be able to find those parts, make sure that they're kind of reducing some of these barriers and allow them to be a lot more efficient on their work orders. So the next part that I'll show is going to be filtering of the parts and the purchase order list views. So when I come back to my inventory list view, in this configuration, I do not have the stock lines enabled currently, just to give a little bit more show here. So the first part that we added for your parts list view is additional filters. And these filters are the area. Go in here and get that one. We've added the customer, the team, additional information, additional details, and the description. So these are all values which belonged to the part record, but were not previously searchable on your filters. So you can apply any of these in conjunction with all of your other filters and be able to save these in your save view. So help you a lot more in this refining of your parts records at that point. I'm going to move over to our purchase order view and show you some of the new filters there as well. So the biggest impact here is parts. You were not previously able to refine your purchase orders list view by the parts which were within those purchase orders themselves. So now if you are looking for that pulley tensioner from that specific location, you can go ahead and select that and apply it. I don't have any purchase orders for that one, but that is the absolute biggest piece there, because now you can actually go and see those specific purchase orders, be able to get the history of when they were ordered previously. So that is our big one. Alternative to this, we do have the purchase order number now added and the company name. So if you wanted to sort by specific companies which you had sold to or purchased from, as well as the specific purchase order number, you can just go ahead and refine those items. And contained in here, if you have certain portions of that number, again, all of these items can be moved over into the saved views as well, really helping your efficiency at that point. Next, I'm going to move on to the label printing. This is really for those technicians, anybody who is an inventory manager, somebody who's going to be actually labeling or restocking on these parts. As Natasha mentioned, it is in the Avery label 1 inch by 2 5/8 inch format. And this is really good for those specific applications of just a few labels. You need to make sure that some of the data is on there. People know what they're looking at. Our prior system or our prior operation of exporting these QR codes, it just didn't have as much information as some people needed, some of our customers needed. So that is why we show those extra values there as well. So when I return back to this parts section, I'm going to simply select the few items that I need select to download the labels. Now, I do want to mention that if you do not have any barcode associated with this one, it will not produce you those labels. That is something that is different from our generate and download. So as you can see here, I have these two specific items, and now I have the pulley as the part name, the specific barcode for it, a location, and an area. And these are structured in that Avery label format. So you can print them out on a sticky sheet and go and just peel that label off if you need to. And that concludes my demo for today. Are there any questions?
All right, thank you, Nate.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
All right, so that's going to bring us to just the general Q&A portion of the program. Doesn't have to be specific to what we saw today either. So if you have just any general sort of product questions or how do I do this or can UpKeep do that, feel free to go ahead and drop those in the chat as well. Let's see, Spencer, are there any questions you want to highlight or review from the question section?
Let's see. Tim asks, will sorting in the work order column and a work order page be available in the new release? I think the answer to that is no. I'm not fully understanding what sorting the work order column means and work order page. But this current release doesn't involve anything related to work order updates. So I don't think you'll expect any sort of sorting changes with work orders in our fall release.
Yeah, Spencer, my assumption at this point is the sorting by that work order number, right? Which I know for has been a frequent ask.
Yeah. So that's something I think, as Natasha mentioned at the top, one of the things we're working on is a revamp to our work orders page. And so those types of features will be considered for that, sorting by work order number specifically. But that's not a part of this release, this fall release. That's something we expect to see in our winter release. There's a question about progress on work orders being able to contain multiple assets.
Yeah,
So,
that's great. So currently we don't allow the multiple assets. It is something that we are exploring as a research item. We do allow assets to be assigned to their checklist tasks, and so they can be performed in conjunction with that. I'd love to follow up and get some more information about the exact application of how you need multiple assets on the work orders. And as always, please feel free to add some of that detail and context on our user voice section in the application. On the bottom left-hand side, you're able to see the provide feedback. And these are areas where you can tell us about issues or new features that you need or something that may help you be more performant in your business.
Okay, question about label making. Later on, do I scan the label in the app on my mobile?
Yes, the answer to that is yes. So once you've created a QR code and you've printed that out and put it somewhere physically in the real world, there's a couple different things you can do. You can, on a work order, when you add parts to a work order, there's an option to scan there. If you scan that QR code, then it'll just automatically add that part to the work order. So it kind of saves you the ability to have to search for that part specifically and type things out. There's also just sort of a general scan function within the mobile app, and if you scan any QR code that is UpKeep generated, it'll sort of just bring you to that page within the mobile app. So again, if you're out and you're looking through parts and inventory, you can scan a QR code and you'll be brought to that part page.
Okay, is there any plan to make the PO request form editable? The current info is a bit robust for my users, and I'd like to trim it down like the work order request portal.
Yeah, we've looked at this for our templates of purchase orders as well, and it is something that we have on our roadmap, but there's no specific time frame for that at the moment.
Yeah. Also related to PO, Kevin asks, are there future plans to keep unit costs specific to PO instead of pulled from current unit cost? And the answer to that is yes. It's of all there's sort of been a lot of PO requests here in the chat and in questions, but of everything related to POs, this is the highest priority for us. So it's something that's very high priority on our radar. I don't have a specific timeline on when you can expect that, but just know that is a pretty big deal for us.
I do want to call out one point with that as well, which is the parts display of the unit cost is purely just a display in the system. It doesn't actually alter any of your logged costs for those purchase orders as well. So your total costs that might be there. So it's not a data integrity issue at that point. It's just simply how we display in the system that current value of the part. But it is something, as Spencer mentioned, we are looking to correct.
There's a question here around, oh, go ahead, Natasha.
Is UpKeep working on the ability to send messages to all vendors or requesters at once?
No, that's not something we're currently working on. It'd be something we'd definitely be interested to hear a little bit more about and kind of what the use case is for that. But no, that's not something that's currently in the works. Question here, once a work order has been created and assigned a number, the only options we have are open, in progress, on hold, or complete. Can another option be added for declined? Alina, do you want to talk about this?
Hey, Angela, thanks for asking this question. We actually are going to release custom work order statuses in Q4. So you'll be able to add your own status for your option of adding declined, yeah.
There's a question kind of just generally about what kind of enhancements for POs are in the planning stage. And, the planning stage is kind of about trying to figure out what we can fit into a reasonable amount of time. But some things that are on our radar, or actually, Alina, do you want to talk about some of the things that are on our radar?
Sure can. Thank you, Tom, for all of your questions about purchase orders. I'm happy to answer them. So we're definitely looking at adding non-part line items. I think that was one of your questions that you asked earlier. Also looking at immutable part costs and purchase order approval workflows. But feel free to ask any more questions regarding purchase orders, yeah.
Okay, working in an educational setting, it becomes necessary to notify requesters or vendors of power outages, equipment failures, emergencies, etc. It would be so helpful to send bulk notifications through UpKeep as opposed to a third-party program. For example, the ability to send a single message alerting that the AC system is now online in a particular building would be beneficial. Is there any possibility of adding this feature?
I think that was the bulk notifications question.
I think it might have been slightly different, like email versus text maybe, or I don't think we have anything on the roadmap for this specifically, but definitely understand how that could be helpful. Thank you for bringing it up.
A question here I think we haven't addressed yet, which is UpKeep working on the ability to add multiple locations to work orders? Nate, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the answer to that is no. That's not something that we have in the works.
No, that is for the most part counterintuitive to how the work orders would be processed there for the most part. I have heard some feedback about sub-locations or something of that nature, kind of coinciding with how the work goes through the checklist as well there. But that's certainly something that we can probably take offline and have a conversation about how that fits your business needs. And then another one that I wanted to answer for Eric Higgins, which is these sets of parts having a quantity so that they can be added to the work order. And that is actually something my team is investigating right now in terms of what our overall lift is for the implementation of that. So at the point of associating to a work order, you would be able to add those predefined sets, which would automatically select those quantity levels as well. So there is no time frame on it, but it is a high priority for us as well. So we should be able to expect something in the near future for this.
All right, I want to do Lily's question real quick. So I'm having problems adding vendors. Oh, hang on. I'm having problems adding vendors using the mobile app. Is that in the works? So maybe the first question is, can you add a vendor to the mobile app or through the mobile app?
No, you cannot.
Okay, so that needs to be done through the web app.
Yes. Question from Tyler, parts inventory page. Can we add the skip to page? Specifically want to skip to page 10 like the old page has. In general, UpKeep has sort of been moving more towards the infinite scroll type approach of loading, where you scroll down and we load, you know, the next set of results for you. Tyler, I think I'd love to hear from you offline, like if you could kind of write into us and let us know like what your use case is for skipping to page 10. Generally, what we recommend is using things like filtering and searching and sorting to sort of make sure that the results you're trying to see bubble up to the top of the page rather than having to scroll through a bunch of stuff. So that's kind of been our focus and approach to finding things in lists, as opposed to sort of this like skip to page and having to ask you to scroll through a bunch of stuff. So would love to hear from you around why, kind of like what the use case is for skipping to pages.
Is there anything on the roadmap for adding failure codes to work orders when completing them?
Yeah, so there is this concept of closeout data, completed data, what your completion section is there. And as I mentioned previously, we're exploring this template concept for a few different areas of our application. And work orders would obviously be one of those as well, where we will provide also those custom fields. It's something that is a bigger effort in general, and we're looking at and doing a lot of research on what the best application is there. But to answer the failure mode as well as completed description information, those would all be essentially options of that template which could be added there. No hard timelines on this, obviously, but I'd love to keep you all in the loop on that and make sure that we kind of are covering your needs as we do the development on this.
Okay, will there be a field to write the response of how the work order is completed, currently adding it into the description area?
Yeah, that was also what I was answering right there. I was grouping them.
All right, and then Mark, will UpKeep be able to connect to ALC BMS to make a log of downtime?
So I'm not familiar with that particular type of PLC, but what I'd recommend is just get in touch with us and we can just talk a little bit further about what your specific technical setup is and then if we can connect to it or not. I mean, typically, we're able to connect to some of the major PLC brands, so like your Allen Bradley or a Siemens or an Omron or something like that, or if you have your device on what's called an OPC UA server, which is kind of like the common industrial protocol across these various PLCs, we can talk in that modality as well. But again, just recommend you get in touch with us and then we can help you vet your setup.
Question from Donald, can any user level create and add a checklist to a work order, especially if the work order is already set to recurring? Daniel, can you speak to this?
Yeah, editing existing recurring work orders is really tricky right now. Like getting to the actual like root and being able to edit it so it like procs forward, like works for on future work orders that are created. We're releasing some enhancements around that hopefully later this year or start of next year to make it just really easy to actually be able to edit those schedules. Right now, you basically have to like deep link into the root recurring work order itself. If that's something you need help with, I suggest reaching out to support, or you can reach out to me directly, and I can help you figure that out.
Thanks. Another question: when a tech puts a work order in progress, does it start the timer automatically? The answer to that question is no. The inverse is true. If you start a timer and the work order is not yet in progress, it will move it over to in progress. But if you just move it to in progress, no, you also have to then start your timer. And then also, if two techs are working under the same work order, does it track both their hours separately in analytics? The answer is yes, as long as those technicians are in fact tracking their time, right? So as long as both of those technicians are tracking their time in their own accounts, then you can build reports and analytics that tell you, who's working on what work order, and it'll separate it out by the text. Question. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm not sure if we got to this one. Under set of parts, is there going to be a quantity that can be selected or added in that specific part set?
Yeah, I think Nate got to that one. He said it's something that his team is currently investigating. Tim asks or clarifies, sorting by work order not going to happen. It is going to happen, Tim. I think what I was trying to say was in the current release. So in our fall release, that's not a part of it, but we are working on a new user experience for the work orders page and list, and sorting by work order will be available in that experience. Lily asks, will you have a staff scheduler to show days they are off?
I'll take that one. It's something that we've been exploring in terms of asset scheduling, people scheduling, and the general overall concept of scheduling. How that is going to be developed and what it will actually mean in the product sense, we have not solidified yet. So that is to say, it is something that is on our radar and that we will be looking at. But Lily, I don't have a specific time frame for that currently.
All right. I think that we're caught up on questions. If you have a question that hasn't been answered, drop it in the chat now, and we'll get to it. Okay. Antoine asks, if two techs are working on the same work order, should both open that work order so that time is logged for both appropriately? Yes. If two technicians are working on a work order, they should each be in their own account, and they should each log their own time. There's no sort of connection where, like they do need to be in their own accounts and log their own time. But as long as that's happening, then you can report on each of those people's time individually. All right.
All right, I don't see any more typing ellipses. Oh, there's a question. Can any level user create and add parts to the parts inventory?
Yes, currently it is. There is a lot of availability for all permission types and role types to add parts. But there is now that delineates between somebody else that created parts versus, say, a limited tech. There is custom roles, though, which do prevent you from having those options. So if it is something that you need to restrict that from, there's more granularity at that point where you can use custom roles for that one.
Just another clarification on multiple workers recording time on work orders. Yes. So assigning a second work order or a second worker to a work order, it doesn't inherently track the time independently. The key to time tracking and making sure everyone's time gets associated to them is that if a user is logged in their account and records time on a work order, either with the timer or manually, that time will be associated to them. It doesn't really matter who's assigned to the work order and who's not assigned to it. What matters is if you're logged into an account and you record time, then that time is attributed to you. So to answer the question of does assigning a second work order to a work order, does that track time independently? Like, not inherently. What needs to happen is that worker needs to log their time in their account. That is what will ensure that everyone's time is accounted for. Do we integrate work orders, materials requisitions, and inventory management?
Yeah, I think I'd need a little bit of clarification on that question. Vladimir, if you could maybe rephrase it by chance. Are you asking specifically about like API integrations with another system, or? how the work orders, requisitions, and inventory coordinate between each other.
Okay, why don't we try to follow up, Vladimir? We can try to follow up with you offline. And I know we're coming up to the top of the hour here. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap for today. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. You will receive an automated email with the recording of this, and really appreciate all of the questions and feedback. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.